Krishna Gopinath Shama Kundu Radhikundi Giri Govardhan Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sri Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious to see Guru and Gauranga, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om. Nama Om Vishnu Pradaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Picharane, Nivasesha Samyavadi, Praskatya Desatarni, Om Agyanadavinandasya, Jaradana Salakaya, Chaksu Similatanjanya Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah, Sri Chaitanya Manabhistam, Stapitam Dinavintale, Sayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Sapadanivikam, Vanchakalpa Tubhyascha, Kripasim Garivacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu is one of the grandfathers of our temple here. Although we don't know each other well, but we so much appreciate the service that you've done, Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. How wonderful. Are you staying here now?
1 more week.
Okay. Where do you stay mostly?
North Carolina.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Anyway, very happy to see you. You must be so amazed every time you come and see Radharashmi that it's blossomed into this after all the austerities and prayers and difficulties that you went through. We don't really have any, we can't even grasp, practically speaking, we can't conceive of what devotees like Prabhu went through, so that we can sit here very comfortably in our chairs and hopefully hear some Krishna Katha. But it is, this temple is built on so much struggle, of course, by Srila Prabhupada, but by Srila Prabhupada's very dear followers who just to please him so many years ago underwent, well, you all know, but in maybe a few sentences would you be able to tell us what it was like in the early days? I don't know if it's possible to do that.
Well, I've already done it a couple of times.
like 10,000 times? But how would you sum it up in 2 sentences?
College University of Juhu Mumbai, have the great privilege to serve him and to be allowed to have his association and to witness his vision unfold. There's nothing to be compared with that.
What would you like to see more, other than more devotees?
Well, it would be nice to see that once I go outside the temple compound, it's a continuation of Krishna consciousness wherever I go.
Wow. Prabhupada has blessed you with very big vision. Thank you. Is it all right that I say something? I try my best. Hare Krishna. So I will ask now one, and I almost start every class with this most difficult question. Does anyone remember anything from yesterday's class? And if you do, raise your hand. Okay. First.
Serving the pure devotees with all humility, you can attract their attention and they will then impart the knowledge about the personality of God.
By serving pure devotees, we can attract their attention, and they will impart knowledge to us. Knowledge is so much a part of their blessings, instructions and knowledge. I mentioned yesterday that we would tend to like blessings to be like some magic dust that automatically makes all our problems go away. And although those type of blessings really do exist, but generally, the blessings that we get, and they should be seen as blessings, are the instructions from the Bhaktivedantas in this case and also in our case. It's their instructions, because if we imbibe, if we can hold those instructions and follow them, they will guide us to that place that will award us the satisfaction that we truly long for. Anyone else remember anything? Yes, Prabhuji.
You spoke about how Narad Muni in his past life as the Gandharva Upavarmana, how the blessings, the opulences he had turned into, the cause of his fall down.
Yes.
How later on in his next life, his difficult circumstances caused him to, progress in Krishna consciousness.
Yes. And this is, in one sense, one of the great arts of living a Krishna consciousness life, a Krishna conscious life, is somehow turn the difficulties into blessings, into opportunities. And we did see this with Srila Prabhupada. I'm thinking specifically of one incident in the early days, the very early days of the movement in perhaps 1960, 1970. This wasn't the very early days, but there were some difficulties in ISKCON at that time, and Prabhupada couldn't even sleep. I was in Japan at that time, and Prabhupada came to Japan because of these difficulties, and it was almost shocking to see him, that he had seemed to have aged quite a few years in just maybe 1 or 2 years since I had seen him last. 1 year. But it was a difficult time. It was an extremely difficult time. And it could have been, and it must have been discouraging for Srila Prabhupada, but yet Srila Prabhupada used that difficulty that at that time pushed him out of the United States. And he went to India, he went to Calcutta at that time, and he opened up the biggest preaching field in the world. He used the energy that difficulty created in a positive way. So of course, who likes difficulties? And when Kunti Maharani prayed, she preferred the difficulties. She wasn't saying that I want difficulties just because I love to suffer. No one likes to suffer. But when she compared the time she was in now, at that time, which is described in the 8th chapter of the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, when Krishna was leaving, Krishna was heading back to Dwarka from Hastinapur. And for so many years, Krishna had been with the Pandavas. And for the entire battle of Kurukshetra, he was with the Pandavas. But now, She was Maharani, she was the queen. She was the queen mother, Yudhisthira was the king. And now, on one level, she had no problems, but Krishna was leaving. And she preferred the circumstance when she was with Krishna, despite the difficulties, than being bereft, being without Krishna, and having everything, the whole kingdom at your disposal. Now, how about you? No, which would you prefer? You raised your hand, now I'm going to ask you. Huh? No, we want that question. Which would you prefer? Are you sure? Because, which would you prefer? Would I like the difficulties of my life all removed, practically Swagaloka or something like that, or Mahaloka, Janaloka? And that's actually what it's like in these higher planets. It's not like the pleasures that are available here are available there. There's more of it. No, it's not like that at all. It's subtle. It's the difference between, of course, no, this isn't a good example for here, but it's heavy modern music with loud guitars and very loud this and that. Of course, none of you have ever listened to that kind of heavy music, compared to some very subtle recital by expert artists, musicians. Either the Western classical music or the very fine Indian ragas and raginis played by very fine artists. Very, very subtle. It moves the consciousness in a more subtle way. It's sattvic. So in those higher planets, it's not the material, that which we consider material pleasures here. It's not that kind of pleasure, but it's more subtle pleasures. Much more subtle and refined. So, what do we want? And this is a very important question to ask ourselves quite regularly. What do we really want? And of course, if I say, what do you really want? Everyone will raise their hands immediately and say, I want Krishna, I want to serve Krishna, because that's the right answer. But what do you really want? Because and this I found that one time I was walking with, I had the fortune of being with Srila Prabhupada in Japan, and at one point, somehow or another, and just Shyamasundar Prabhu and I were walking with Prabhupada in some mountainous region outside of Tokyo, Asakawa-cho, and Shyamasundar suddenly had to leave and go somewhere, so I was just standing alone with Srila Prabhupada. So it was a quiet moment, and it was just he and I said to him, Prabhupada, I just want to serve you. And he didn't reply. And inside, and especially when I thought about his reply or not reply, I thought that the response was, in one sense, oh really? Let's see. Time will tell. Because time does tell what we really want. So we want to, this is what we want to refine. As I mentioned yesterday, that in the 15th chapter of the Purushottam Yoga, or Yoga of the Supreme Person chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says in the purport, and Krishna describes the material world as a reflection of the spiritual world, and it is based, our position in the material world is based upon our desire, just like the tree's reflection is situated on. What is the tree's reflection situated on? Water. Similarly, our situation in the material world, or for that matter in the spiritual world, is based upon our desire. So really this is the essence of what we are trying to do, the following of the rules and regulations and the chanting and our worship of the deity and our service. We want to purify our heart and free our consciousness, our mind, our chitta from the lower modes of nature, the lower desires, the desires born of tamagun, ignorance, the desires born of rajagun. And this is so much what's being propagated in the world nowadays. And real culture provides the material elements in such a subtle way that one's consciousness is uplifted rather than degraded, that our desires become more refined and more subtle. And the subtlest, even beyond the mode of goodness, the subtlest desires are the desires by which we really only desire to serve Krishna with great devotion. And that is the natural consciousness of every soul. That is the natural consciousness of every soul. So I think it is helpful every once in a while to ask, well, what do I want? Why have I come to the temple? Why have I joined? Why do I chant Hare Krishna? What do I want? And if the answer comes back, I just want to serve Guru, Vaishnava, Srila Prabhupada, Madharas Bihari with great devotion, then if it comes back, that answer comes back sincerely, I don't want anything else other than that, please engage me in your service. That is the simple but very deep, profound definition that Srila Prabhupada first gave us. The definition of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There are so many definitions. Our acharyas, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Gopal Guru Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, so many acharyas have given meanings, definitions of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that are very, very deep and even very, very wonderful. But the simple definition Srila Prabhupada first gave us was, O Lord, O energy of the Lord, O Krishna, O Srimati Radharani, please engage me in your service. Please accept me as your servant. Please allow me to serve you. This is my natural position. I just want to serve you. I've tried for so many lives, and in this life, to imagine myself as the center of existence, to imagine that I could be happy getting served by others, and all that's happened to me is I've become a servant of everyone. The more I want to control, the more I end up having to serve many people. So now, I just want to serve you. Please accept, please allow, it is the greatest honor. That's what Prabhu said when I asked him to summarize his experience. It was such an honor to serve Srila Prabhupada. Such an honor. And the blessings that come from that service, the blessings that come from that service, not the continual asking, please give me your blessings, 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 please give me your blessings. But the blessings that flow from serving, they sometimes don't manifest their results immediately. But those results are our true wealth. In other words, also the service is our wealth. The service is the goal, not the results of the service, but the service. That's when we go to, eventually, Krishna willing, we'll go to Goloka Vrindavan. And there, what will we do? What will we do? There was once, I don't think it's this picture painting, no. But I once was looking at a very wonderful painting of Krishna surrounded by cows. And he was embracing the cows, and they were very beautiful with lotus cow eyes and decorated nicely, and Krishna was very beautiful. And there was 2 cows, there were 4 cows, there were 1,000 cows, and there were just cows going into the distance. And this was many years ago in Vrindavan, and I just looked at that picture and a painting. It was a picture of a painting, and I thought, there's unlimited cows in Vrindavan, and they all love Krishna. And Krishna has unlimited servants in Vrindavan. Unlimited. We can't conceive of what unlimited is. There's no limit. Not 1,000,000, not 1,000,000,000, not a quadrillion, not a whatever. It's unlimited. And Krishna has unlimited servants. Unlimited servants. And if I go to Vrindavan one day, all I could ever be is an insignificant servant. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all I could ever be. And suddenly, when that point struck me, I thought, maybe I joined the wrong movement. Because that's all we could ever be. But there's something quite mystical and mysterious about that too, is because if we become the servant, and Srila Prabhupada explains this when he speaks about what he said, the mystery of the disciplic succession is that by serving someone who's 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 serving Krishna, Krishna simultaneously interacts with everyone. Did you hear that sound? Good timing. That simultaneously we interact directly with Krishna and through so many others that we serve. So it is the most wonderful, mysterious thing to be a servant of Krishna. Mama eva angsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, and jivera sarupoi nityadas. This is who we are. This is who we are. And of course, that's a general statement that we're servants of Krishna. And we were individuals with the specific ways when we manifest our identity, who we actually are. It's always as a servant of Krishna. This is who we are. Now we're not who we are, although we're not who we are. Or we could say we are who we're not. And we could get even more confused by saying the same thing in many other ways. But who we are is that we serve Krishna in relationship. That's who we are, in relationship to Krishna. And that is the missing relationship in life. So this all comes out, and even more in the story of Narada Muni. Now, the first truth, do we have? Yes, first one was, the root cause of our current suffering is difficult to discern and therefore complicated to dissolve. Everyone in the material world, in material existence, goes through difficulties. No one wants difficulties, but everyone suffers difficulties. And we try to remove those difficulties by pushing this away and pulling that closer, but we can never remove the difficulties. Because, as we heard with Sri Narada Muni, as Upabarhana, his difficulty came from a curse in his previous life. But whatever difficulty we may be suffering from, it could have come from something that we did 6,000 lives ago, or 10,000 lives ago, or 100,000 lives ago, and we're trying to move a grain of sand from our karma that's a mountain high. So we find it very difficult to alleviate and change the difficulties in our life for this reason. And we also saw with Upabhahana, although I didn't write it down as one of the four essential points, that he was proud. He had a gift. He had many gifts. He was beautiful. He was strong. He was so musical. But every gift that we have in every single soul, especially we see with devotees, they have gifts. And one of the arts of Krishna consciousness is to use those gifts that Krishna has given us without pride. Know that they are gifts. To use them, not for me. And this is something that I think about, and I've noted it in myself, is that when you do a service, when I do a service, say I'm giving class or something like that, and if somehow or another I give a good class, and I'll say, oh, no, it's not me, or something. But there's always such a tendency, I find, to always want to take something out of it. Maybe it's just a small 1%, or whatever passes through me, I want to take something for me out of it, to make sure that I get recognized, to make sure that I get something out of it. But this is not love, nor is it Shuddha Bhakti, nor is it Anyabilasita Sanyam. And unless our devotional service is free from even taking anything for ourselves, I just want to serve because this is who I am. This is what Prahlad Maharaj says to Lord Nrsimhadev in the 10th chapter of the 7th canto, when Lord Nrsimhadev says, I will give you anything you want. Anything you want. Just imagine if someone said that to you. You'd probably get a really nice new bicycle or something. Just imagine if you could have anything you want. And Prahlad said, please do not tempt me in this way. Our natural position is that I serve you. I'm not a baniya. I'm just your servant. Please allow me to serve you. So that was his response. So these things they're very deep. Deep in the sense, they're simple in one sense. They're simple to understand. But they're very, very deep, because false ego, it covers our consciousness, and it's not so easy to remove this sense of being independent from Krishna, this sense of being an enjoyer. Now listen to what happened to our Narada Muni. The first step that we heard is he was born in a very unfortunate circumstance. He didn't know who his father was. He had no father to take care of him. His mother was just a maidservant. Just a maidservant, humble servant. And he, as a young boy, had lost all that pride that he had due to the merciful curse of the Prajapati. He had lost his pride. And when the Bhaktivedantas, the sages, the Brahminical sages came during the rainy season to stay for 4 months, because he served them in a very innocent and pure way, the taste, by their association, the taste that they had, that which had filled their heart, that which had filled their consciousness, what they loved in life. And that was Krishna Katha, glorifying Krishna. They would continuously talk about Krishna and think about Krishna and tell others about Krishna and hear about Krishna. That taste was transferred by the mercy of those sages, by the association of those sages, into the heart of this little boy who later became Sri Narada Muni. He had that taste. But then, because Chaturmasya is not Anantamasya, it's only 4 months, it ended. And they left. But before they left, they gave him a special gift, a special blessing. They taught him that same knowledge that was given by the Lord, spoken by the Lord himself. And Srila Jiva Goswami explains that knowledge is the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Now, does anyone remember the very simple meaning of the first verse that we spoke about, that I spoke in a summary? Yes?
Krishna is the source of everything.
Yes, and he's there. Thank you, Paul. He's there before the creation. And not only is he the source of everything, after the annihilation, he is all that's left. And not only is he all that's left at the annihilation, during the time when everything is existent, there's nothing separate from him. Everything ultimately is Krishna, Krishna's energy. Second verse, thank you. What was the second verse? Does anyone remember? That ritam ya pratyetana pratyetachamani. Does anyone remember in a simple way? Yes.
Anything that's separate from Krishna is mine.
Thank you, Mataji. If you perceive anything other than Krishna in everything, in anything, in every circumstance, in any object, whether it's water, fire, earth, anything, to see anything as if Krishna is not there is Maya. Your consciousness is covered by the cloud of illusion because Krishna, there's nothing in existence other than Krishna. That is the meaning of him being Param Satyam, the absolute truth. There is nothing external to him. Third verse. So those were Sambandha Jnana. Yes. But loudly.
He is outside everything, but he is inside also everything. So if you have to see him, you have to see Prema.
Yes. That as the great elements exist outside of everything, the earth, fire, water, air, ether, but also they exist within everything, but we can't see them. Similarly, Krishna exists outside of everything. He exists in Goloka Vrindavan, and he exists within everything, within every atom. He's there everywhere. He's in every circumstance. But what is the element, what is the thing that allows us to see Krishna? This is also in Kunti Devi's prayers, Maya Jivani Kachanam, that she says our vision is covered by although you are everywhere basically, we see you nowhere. This is the effect, the specific effect of illusion of Maya. Although he is everywhere, we see him nowhere. So, what is that change in consciousness that will allow us to see Krishna everywhere? And that change is Prema Bhakti. So this is Prayojana. So Abhideya, the fourth verse, first two are Sambandha, and the third one is Prayojana, and the fourth one is Abhideya. And what is the process? Is that we have to be so sincere. What's the verse in Sanskrit? I also forgot it. Etadaveva gigyasur apagigyasanam anvyo vyatari kavyam yatsat savatsa sarvada. If our search in life, should only be for this. This is the methodology, the Abhideya Tattva, to get that prema based on Sambandhagyan. To get that prema bhakti, that love of Krishna, and be searching for nothing else. This is the Abhideya Tattva. To be that fully sincere, that is the methodology. So, after giving this gift to Narada Muni, then one may think that Narada's... Is there a little water anywhere? Excuse me. He had this knowledge, and then the Bhaktivedantas left. So we men may tend to think that as soon as we know something, we're already perfect. But the real test is in the application of what we know, and that's the hard part. I mean, not that it's easy to know things, so much philosophy and so much slokas and so much spiritual truth, but the real test is to apply it to our life, and that's what it's for. But the second principle was that we should get transcendental knowledge. And we should view our life through that lens. We should see in that way. It's not meant to just be in our head, but it's meant to be in our eyes too, our consciousness, because we don't see exactly with our eyes, we see with our mind. We should fill our mind with this vision, the vision of Shastra. But then the Bhaktivedanta is left. And there was little boy, 5-year-old boy, Narada Muni, just back in the same situation as he was before, in the hotel, the inn, but now he had knowledge, and now he had a taste. But the Bhaktivedantas had gone. Now, in one sense, here it becomes very interesting, and here it very much parallels the life of a devotee. Parallels the life of a devotee in the sense that we may think, when we first start chanting Hare Krishna, that, and we quote, join, and we may think, now everything in my life and every person I meet and everything will be just so wonderful and there won't be any more problems anymore. But I hate to be the person who tells you this, but that is not the way life is. That is simply not the way life is. But I think many of you have already understood this point. So what happened to Narada Muni? His life, Prabhupada explains in his purport, is the ideal life of a devotee. There's another ideal who was also a young boy that we'll hear about in the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj. But here is the ideal life of a devotee. The whole life is described. So we'll continue rather. This is in the 6th chapter. We were reading from the 5th chapter of the 1st canto before. This is the 6th. The great sages, this is text 5 in the 6th chapter, who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me, they departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection other than me, Narada Muni said. And because of her affection to him, and because she relied on him, even though he was just a 5-year-old boy, she bound him. She tied him with that affection. And although he would have preferred to go with the Bhaktivedantas, go traveling with them, just experience life as they experience life, because of her affection and her dependence upon him, he was bound and did not go. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly because she was his mother. But because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. But the world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. And everyone is just like a wooden doll, Darumai, Yosha, I know it, Karputli, I think, and in Bengali it's Putulnach. It's just like a wooden doll, a dancing doll, in the hands of a puppet master, and the Lord is the master. So he was in a particular circumstance. But then, when I was a mere child, 5 years old, I lived in the Brahmin school. I was dependent on my mother's affection. I had no experience of foreign lands, of different lands. But then, Ekada, Nigatam, Gehad, once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, and influenced by supreme time, she died. Now, what could you say to a young boy of 5 years old who has no one other than his mother, and then his mother dies, and there this poor boy is all alone and no one to care for him? So in one sense, in a very practical sense, in the sense that we generally see the world with that vision, measuring fortune and unfortune, misfortune, by not through the lens of spiritual knowledge, but through the lens of material concepts. He appeared through that lens to be even more unfortunate and even more cursed than he was before. But actually, he had transcendental knowledge, and he had the great ability and sincerity and purity to apply that transcendental knowledge to the, quote, seemingly unfortunate position he was in, and he turned it. He turned that misfortune into the greatest fortune because he could see, he accepted that there is no circumstance, no object, no place. There is nothing that is separate from Krishna. So Krishna's mercy should be there and is there. So Prabhupada explains in his purport, confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. So even difficult circumstances, even the most difficult circumstances, contain in those unfortunate circumstances, circumstances that no one would wish upon another. Who would ever wish that a young boy's mother would die and leave him unprotected? But yet, in there, if somehow or another we can find the mercy of the Lord, like Narada Muni did, we are very, very fortunate, most fortunate. And Narada Muni, thinking that this somehow or another is a benediction of the Lord, he says, I started for the north. I started for the north. Well, where were you going? I started for the north. But I didn't start for the north just to travel. He started with the object of, according to the Abhidheya Tattva, of looking for the Lord and looking to cultivate his dependence on Krishna. Because that is the essence of Sharanagati, Gatrapte Varanam Data. Depend upon Krishna. Because when we depend upon Krishna, this gives us the mentality to feel ourselves under Krishna's protection. And then we experience Krishna's protection. And I think every devotee, for sure Prabhu, in the early days, or any devotee in current days who tries to do anything seriously day after day after day after day, whether it's distributing books or doing the puja or cooking or whatever the service is, or to do some service day after day, even the days when you don't feel like doing it because the mind is going to some days tell you, this is the last thing I feel like doing. Because that's the very nature of the mind, accepting and rejecting. But devotees who give themselves to a service, they find that Krishna indeed is a person, and he protects, and he reciprocates, and he's really there. It's not just a cultural thing, it's not just a theoretical point that God exists and he's a distant creator. No, he interacts with his devotees. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. He takes care of them. He reciprocates with them. So we're not going to ask you to, all those who have experienced Krishna's reciprocation, we're not going to ask you to raise your hands and let's give away your deepest secrets. How Krishna is. And it's amazing. I mean, with all the devotees. And Krishna does it in his own special way. So he just headed north. A little boy depending on Krishna, heading north. And one would think, maybe, perhaps, that only good is going to happen to him because Krishna is with him and protecting him. But no! And only good isn't going to happen to us either when we head north, when we try to do some service for Krishna. Listen to what happened to Narada Muni. I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, natural forests. So he went through all, he experienced life. And we too are going to experience life according to some combination of our fate, our karma, and how Krishna wants us to experience life. We are going to experience life individually. None of us look the same or dress the same. We're all individuals. We have our individual fate. And Krishna reciprocates with us individually and hands us our fate. So Narada Muni went through his fate, his life. He went through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers that were fit for the denizens of heaven. He tasted heavenly delights. He passed through many forests also of rushes. That means not thorny, but that the grass that cuts, bamboo reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves filled with snakes and dangerous animals. And these were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerous, fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. He didn't only visit the gold mines and the beautiful lakes and pleasant this and pleasant that. He went through life, and he had an experience of good times and bad times and fearful places and difficulties and good things. But he was looking for Krishna. He was seeing everything through the lens of transcendental knowledge that he had been gifted with, through the lens of his taste. And as we go through life, we are confronted with so many different tastes. And through those tastes, we have the opportunity to ask us, as we were saying ourselves, as I said in the beginning, well, what do I really want? Do I want the taste of one lassi? Or do I want the taste of two lassi? Two lassi, Krishna, to serve two lassi. You like that joke? You can have it. So what do we really want? As we go through life, we're confronted with so many things. Well, what do we really want? This is actually the meaning of being a sannyasi. Well, really, is to go through life and just depend on Krishna. What's the verse of the Avanti Brahmana? Etan sastaya paratmanishtam, fixed. Krishna is so kind. There was some mercy in that. Do you know that? Do you know there was some mercy in that? Yeah, because you know the verse. Oh yeah, there was some mercy in that. Yes. Just paratmanishtam, and this is the path Maharshi B of taking, this is the path of the previous acharyas, of taking full shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. This is the path. Because nowadays, I mean, just imagine how much your anxiety you're in if you don't take your mobile phone out with you when you leave the house. What to speak of some kind of a credit card or something like that. What will happen to me? It's dangerous. This is the conditioning of modern civilization, and we fall into it. Do you get an anxiety when you don't have your mobile phone with you? Of course, the brahmacharis, because they only have those Nokia dumb phones, they're okay. So one day, as Narada Muni, and Bhagavatam doesn't say how long it was after he left home, after he was 5 years old, but one day after wandering and wandering and wandering and experiencing life, he sat down in a beautiful, beautiful place under a banyan tree. And in that place there was a reservoir of water, and he bathed in that reservoir of water. And he refreshed himself because he was tired. And there was a breeze coming and moving over that reservoir of water, and the fragrance of the lotuses were there. What a beautiful place. And as was his regular sadhana, he sat down under the banyan tree, the aswat tree, I think it's a pipal tree actually, and he began to meditate. Now Narada Muni's meditation was that he, through the yoga asanas and the pranayama, he had controlled his mind, and he would place through his intelligence, through his intention, he would place the Lord in his heart, the form of the Lord within his heart. Through his intelligence, and he would look and meditate upon that form, the beauty of the Lord's lotus feet, soft, reddish tinge, and this is described also in Kapila Muni's teachings. He would meditate on the Lord's form. This was his usual practice. But on this occasion, something different, something special happened. And what happened was, instead of the Lord being there, placed there by his intelligence, Sakshat Darshan occurred. That the Lord himself actually appeared in his heart. He actually saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, because the Lord, by his sweet will, had manifested there. And Narada Muni became so absorbed, because previously it's an approximation, one could say, because it's based on one's intelligence, which is, after all, one of the material elements. But when the Lord appeared, he became fully absorbed. And the Bhagavatam describes how each of his senses became so absorbed in the beauty of the Lord, his eyes, the fragrance of the Lord, the touch of the Lord, the sound of the Lord, became so absorbed in the transcendence that he forgot even his own existence, that he existed separately from the Lord as an individual. Not that he became the Lord, but his consciousness became so full, filled with the Lord. Krishna appeared in the lotus of his heart, the Bhagavatam says, Sad Yasin Me Shana Hari. Lord Hari, Krishna, appeared in his heart, and he became fully absorbed. And then, when his mind was fully absorbed, he became fully satisfied, and all the difficulties of existence completely disappeared, and then the Lord disappeared. Narada Muni's meditation broke. He stood up. He jumped up. Where is the Lord? Where is the Lord? Where is he? He had just touched transcendence. fully and became fully absorbed, and then it was gone. He was gone. So then Narada Muni sat down and he tried the same mechanical methodology that had seemed to had manifest the Lord previously in his heart. He tried to meditate. He tried to place the Lord with his intelligence, but nothing he could do could cause the Lord to appear. And as he was feeling, he tried again and again, as one naturally would do. And he became, in the words of the Bhagavatam, dissatisfied and very aggrieved. What is the, in Hindi, how would you say the word aggrieved? You say dukha or something. What would you say? What word is aggrieved? Someone say it loudly. Dukhi. But that just means sad, unhappy, miserable. Aggrieved has a sense, Aggrieved has a sense of, great distress, and how can I get it back? Maybe something like that too. That mood is mixed in, Does everyone agree? Of course, you can't get a room full of people to agree, but yes, you understand. Aggrieved, distressed, unhappy. But then, seeing Narada Muni speaking, seeing my attempt in a lonely place, the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all mundane descriptions, without mundane words, we cannot describe him, without mundane tongue. This is actually the subject matter of the 87th chapter of the 10th canto, the prayers of the personified Vedas. This is the subject matter, that the material tongue cannot vibrate a transcendental sound unless the conclusion is the Lord himself manifests there. So, seeing Narada in such a distressed condition, the Lord himself, whose voice was very grave and deep, just to remove Narada's grief, he spoke to him in that lonely place. He said, Hanta's min. Hanta is a very word, it's a word of affection. Hanta's min janmani bhava. That namam drastam ivarhati. Ivarhati means deserve. Namam drastam means you will not see me. Hanta means, oh dear one, I regret to tell you that you will not see me again in this life. Why? Avipakwa kashayanam tudashaham kuyogara. Because you are not mature. You are avipaka. You are still kacha. Your consciousness is not yet mature. Kasayanam, because there are still some impurities in your heart. So therefore, dudarsoham, aham, kuyogina, a person who is like this can hardly see me. But then why did the Lord reveal himself, show himself to Narada one time? And Prabhupada, in its purport, and our Acharyas also explained, Prabhupada's purport is wonderful and long here, quite long. But indirectly, he explains that what Narada Muni's fault was, and it's a fault that I don't have, is that he was too attached to the mode of goodness. Now, that's a problem I don't have. He was too attached to goodness. And therefore, that stopped him from always being in the presence of the Lord, because to always be in the presence of the Lord means you have to give yourself. You have to remove yourself from the center, and that can only be done by purity and complete love. You can't be sensual. Your desires can't be sensual. It is to please another. That is love. And that takes birth in the purified heart, in the Shuddha Sattva heart, not just the Sattva heart. Although the Sattva heart is wonderful, because in Sattva Gun we can make our offerings to the Lord that are wonderful. That's the message of the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And then the Lord continued and explained why he had done this. Sakridya darshitam rupam. I have one time, Sakrid, shown you, given you darshan of my rupam. And you are Anagha, O virtuous one. You are, Krishna also calls Arjuna Anagha. The reason I have done this, and please listen to this verse very carefully. You have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me. Just to increase your desire for me. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you desire to be with me, the more you desire to serve me, the more you desire to love me, you will be freed from all material desires. Param Vistvanavardhite. And if you serve, even for a few days, a devotee who fixes his intelligence on me, and gradually, at some point, consequently, he goes on to become my associate in this transcendental world. After giving up this deplorable or miserable or condemnable material world. So he showed this form, he's not going to show it again, because he wants Narada Muni to hanker for it, to desire to be with him. Because once you've seen that form, once you've been in touch with transcendence on that level, you cannot forget it when you're as sincere as Narada Muni. And that hankering will gradually or quickly, depending upon one's advancement, bring one to the transcendental world. And even at the time of the annihilation of the universe, even when the entirety of the universe is annihilated, that wealth will remain with you. It is yours. And after speaking like this, the forest where Narada Muni was standing became silent. And Narada Muni, glimpsing the gift he was just given, just simply in great gratitude, bowed his head. Now, how did Narada Muni react to this? He had seen so many things in his life, the good and the bad, and he was always looking for the Lord. And now the Lord had given him some very specific mercy and very specific instructions. What did he do? He had still he was incomplete in his bhakti. So what did he do? And this is one could say, the essence of what we also should do when we are in difficulty. When we're not in difficulty, what did he do? So Narada Muni, yes, he took advantage of the difficulties when his mother passed away to move forward. And then finally, he always took shelter of Krishna. That's what he did from now on. He always was doing it, but he really always was doing it. There's one verse, the 26th verse, which describes how he led his life from this moment on. Namani anantasya hatatrapa patan Guyani Badrani Kirtani Chasmaram Kamparyatam Tushtamana Gatasmiha Kalam Pratikshan Vamado Vamaksara. That he just continued his life. He continued his wandering. But as he wandered, as he continued, he continuously recited Patan repeatedly, Guyani, of the mysterious Lord. He recited always the activities of the Lord. And Smaran, he constantly remembered the Lord. He always chanted, he always remembered, he always spoke about the Lord. He did not care at all for the formalities of the external world. And therefore, he traveled as we will travel through our life. And therefore, he was tushtamana. What does that mean? Fully satisfied in his mind. Gataspriha. He was freed from all material desires. And vimatsaraha. He was not envious. That means he could go anywhere in any circumstance. And because he himself was satisfied, he wouldn't think, oh, I wish I had that, and look, he has more than me, and why didn't I do this, and I should have this, and only if only this, and only this, and only that. There was no envy in his heart, because he himself, on the deepest level of himself, was fully satisfied due to his constantly chanting Krishna's name. And while he was living his life, performing this type of deep devotional service, continuous, fully taking shelter of the Lord, with great love, with great devotion, fully absorbed, he just, and without any pride, vimada, he was pratikshan, kalam pratikshan. He was just waiting. He was just waiting for his time to end. And as he was chanting, because the chanting, his spiritual, the Bhaktivedantas, by their association, they had planted the seed of desire in his heart, that taste. And by his constant chanting, that seed was growing and growing and growing until internally who he was who he really was. And he had cleared out Cheto, Darpana, Marjana, all the passion, ignorance, material desires. They were all gone from his heart due to his constant chanting and remembering and speaking about the Lord. And then one day, because his spiritual identity had been cultivated, he had been cultivating his spiritual identity the whole time. As he continued to wandering, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and who therefore had no material attachments, completely freed of all material tinges, taints, stains, due to his constant chanting. At one point, he met with death. But just as lightning, Vajra, yes, and illumination, the lightning bolt and the light occur simultaneously. When his gross body died, immediately he was present in his spiritual body, his Siddhadeha, because he had cultivated it his whole life. Prabhupada explains, for the pure devotee, such a change of bodies takes place exactly like lightning and illumination follow simultaneously. That is to say, a devotee simultaneously changes his material body and immediately develops a spiritual body by the will of the Supreme. And even before death, a pure devotee has no material affection due to his body being spiritualized, because his material body is always being used in the service of the Supreme Lord. It becomes, the Sanskrit word is tadiya, it becomes like a red-hot iron in contact with fire. Although it's a material body, it is not a material body, it is a spiritualized material body. It is spiritualized and it has the qualities of spirit. And that is Narada Muni's story. And in that story, pastime, we get some very important instructions how to deal with life. And this last one over here is the essence. That always take shelter of Krishna. It is easy to say. It rolls so simply off of the tongue. Always take shelter of Krishna. This is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamekam Saranam Vraja, but it's less than easy to do. Now, but unless we know the ideal, unless we have seen the ideal, then how will we know where to push, what direction to push our life in? Now, in my mind, because I have a tendency to get very exuberant, and when I hear this very wonderful philosophy, and know exactly what I should be doing, and etc., I have a tendency to get very, very excited and things like that. But the question happens, it occurs, and it happens to me. What if you can't live up to this ideal? Narada Muni sets the ideal example. But what happens to us? We chant Hare Krishna, we serve in Srila Prabhupada's movement, but we are not quite up to that standard. Or maybe we're even somewhat far from that standard. Do we perish like the yogi, like Arjuna's question at the end of the 6th chapter? What happens to us? Now, even though we spoke about 4 truths, we're going to add 2 more on, sort of. That's what I mean by sort of. T-O-B and N-O-M. That's what happens to us. That's the instruction. Now quickly cover it before some clever person figures out what I've done. And I'm not going to tell you what I mean by that until tomorrow. Because tomorrow we're going to discuss this very practical point of what happens to us who maybe want to live up to that standard of Narada Muni and always take shelter and always chant Hare Krishna, regardless of whatever circumstance I'm in. But somehow or another, Maya is a little too strong. So we'd like to discuss that tomorrow. So we'll end here, and two other points. I'll ask for a few questions, but I'll also say that my voice is just about to leave. It's getting weak. So after the class, I'll try to answer questions now. But after the class, I won't be able to just talk because I want to save a little bit for tomorrow, so I can end this with like telling you what I wanted to tell you and answer to that question. But thank you very much. You listened very carefully. It's not easy to listen so late at night, but by your enthusiasm, I was able to speak. Okay, thank you. But we'll take some questions now, if there's any questions. But don't ask what those words meant, those NOB, because I won't answer them until tomorrow.
You spoke that Lord Krishna showed to Narada Muni his personal form. And after having the audience of Lord, for once his heart was not purified. But we hear Sakrit Pranami Krishna. So just by paying obeisance even once to the Lord, all our heart gets purified of all the material adornment.
Yes. Have you ever once paid your obeisances to the Lord?
Externally, yes.
Well, okay, there you go. Because you didn't fall into my trap with my question. Because if you would have said yes, then I would have asked you, is your heart completely purified? So you said externally, I did. So there's two ways that I would answer that question. One is a way that Prabhupada spoke in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he said that these type of words are true, but they're meant to encourage us, because otherwise we'll never pay our obeisances. We won't do these things, and that's where we're thinking we're going to get the greatest of all profits. That's one way to answer. And the other way is when we pay our obeisances fully and completely give our heart to Krishna, then when it's complete, then the result will be there fully. That's how I would answer that question. Because it also says in Nectar of Devotion, for example, that if you clap your hands one time in front of the deities, your karma goes away, so you can go. What? We can't be tricky, because we are dealing with Juhu Chalawatmi, the one who is most tricky.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yesterday you said that there is a difference between what we want and what we need.
Yes.
So my question is, sometimes we think that this object may be not right now I need it, but after some time or after some days, maybe it will be needed for me or for some other duties. So sometimes we put that. And
Yes.
then after that becomes really anxiety to keep that safe and maintain.
Yes.
But at the
And
same
suddenly your whole house is filled with things that one day you may need. Yes, I know, that's what you mean.
But the another thought is also coming.
Even plastic bags. Hundreds and thousands of plastic bags, because I one day may need them. Yes.
But another thought is also in my mind that we have to use we use everything in service of the Lord. Just like we listen that how Prabhupada used that letter what he get after the using
The
that,
envelope.
They open that and they use. So sometimes I become confused. Should I put with me or should I just throw it in the dustbin? So what should be the how can we do?
You should throw it in the dustbin. Because you're a brahmachari. You're a young boy, brahmachari, you should learn detachment. And let the collecting be done by all the householders. That things to be used. But right now this is what your ashram is meant for now, for learning. Because otherwise, well, let me put it in the positive, that if you learn to disregard your mind and follow the instructions, the proper instructions of Guru and Shastra and Vaishnavas, you will have learned to control your mind. And when you have learned to control your mind, that is the time you can Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta, then you can use everything in Krishna's service without attachment. But so often we try to use everything in Krishna's service, but secretly, without anyone knowing, I also want to take a small percentage for me. So then we ask ourselves, well, is that what I really want in my life? So now is really an important time for you to learn to minimize your needs. Do you sometimes go traveling on Sankirtan in the buses? Do you do that?
Not in Sankirtan, but that's usual.
Well, so many people go on buses in Bombay. What do you mean? Not on Sankirtan?
Not in Sankirtan, but travel for good issues.
Okay, yes, well, that is also Sankirtan, right? So, how many things do you take with you?
Not so much water is needed at that time.
Okay, you can take some water with you. Because you really need the water. But do you take all your plastic bags with you? No. So this time in your life especially, you should try to be very, very, very simple and only take what you need. That would be my advice. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yesterday you spoke about that our real wealth is taste in Krishna consciousness, whatever in chanting or hearing of Bhagavatam. Many times we get some taste, I want to ask, but it gets lost. So what is the reason behind it and how we can preserve it?
Well, I can give you general answers. I see this sometimes when I'm chanting japa in the morning, for example, that Krishna gives me the ability to listen to the holy names. And then I start thinking that I can do this anytime. And I take it for granted, but it's Krishna's gift. And then I think, since I can do it anytime, I won't do it now. And then I'll think about so many other things, so many other things, so many other things. But then I find that I can't return to hearing the holy names. So I've been tricked by Maya again. So perhaps, so I can answer in a general way, but it seems to me that if you're asking that question as a sincere soul who really wants to only cultivate his taste and not be tricked by Maya and not offend devotees and things like that, then you really should speak to someone who knows you really well. Do you have devotees who know you really well, seniors who you can open your heart to and speak to? You have people devotees that you can tell everything to? Then you are very fortunate. Very fortunate. If you have one or two or three so close devotee friends that you can completely open your heart to, you're so fortunate. So it's those who really know you because I can give you a theoretical answer: don't commit offenses, chant good rounds, attend the programs, etc. Don't be tricked by your mind. But you already know those things. So if you want some good practical advice, you should ask those trusted devotees who you feel you can open your heart to and can advise you. That would what I would suggest. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. You mentioned in the class today that Narada Boy, while meditating on the Lord disappeared because the impurity which he had he was too attached to the mode of goodness.
Yes.
So, my question is that the Narada Boy tried to apply the transcendental knowledge given to him at best of his ability. He was meditating, it's fine. And at the same time, we know goodness is required to subdue passion and ignorance, and that's the gateway to transcendence.
Very important.
So, how we know that where we get trapped into goodness and then we are not able to go to transcendence, although here Narada Boy was trying his best to apply the transcendental knowledge given to him, but he got trapped into goodness and he got disappeared.
So subtle. I'll tell you something that happened to me with Srila Prabhupada in Japan. This was in this Asakawa-cho, and it was very, very, very cold. And the windows in these old Japanese houses were made out of paper. And it was so cold. And there was a temple room, and during Mangal Arti, of course, people in Bombay don't even know what cold means. But Prabhupada was sitting on the Vyasasana, and I was one of the devotees in front of him, and I was wrapped up in a chadar or a blanket or something, or 5 blankets, and I was like, Samsara. And Prabhupada just looked at me and said, "It is so cold, isn't it?" And what struck me was Prabhupada didn't like the cold at all. But he wasn't going to let that stop him from spreading Krishna consciousness and serving his Guru Maharaj and caring for the devotees who had surrendered everything to him. It was selfless. It was selfless. So what he liked, or what his convenience wasn't the center perhaps, but it was what was going to please his Guru Maharaj and Krishna. So he was so surrendered to that. So, does that answer your question? Because in the mode of goodness, I'm still in the center. In Siddha Sattva, the pleasure of Guru, Vaishnavas, and Krishna is in the center. Okay, perhaps one last question or 2 questions. Yes, you need the microphone, I believe. Can any of the Matajis have a question? Because, yes, there's one. You can have it next.
Adi, my question a materialistic man is always tormented by a lot of difficulties and he doesn't even know many of the times.
Who? I couldn't hear the first word.
Those people who are thoroughly engaged in materialistic activities. They don't know and they are suffering. So how can they take advantage of difficulties towards spiritual advancement.
The people in ignorance, if I understood your questions, people who don't know anything about spiritual life, how could they take advantage of the difficulties to... Did you have someone in mind?
I consider myself.
You're so humble and Brahminical and truthful. Yes, so one has to get out of ignorance, and the way out of ignorance is get transcendental knowledge through association and hearing and chanting about Krishna. Because you're 100% correct that if we don't know the difference between up and down, good and bad, what's beneficial for us, what's not beneficial for us, how will we make choices about our spiritual life? So we need to learn what is right and what's wrong, and then we have to try to apply it. And that is always difficult, but that's the essence, to try to apply it. So how long have you been chanting?
Sometimes 16, sometimes.
But how long time have you been chanting? How long?
I have been chanting for 2 years or so.
Okay, but some unsteady chanting, the numbers, yes? Okay. But you should find a steady number that you can always chant without fail. Because it's difficult when you up and down, depending upon how your life pushes you. So you should set a minimum and be strong about that. Whether it's 4 or 8 or 12 or whatever, but don't go below that. And those rounds you should chant very carefully. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And with full attention, you should try your best for that. Commit yourself to that. And then you should read, associate with devotees, hear classes, and then it'll be easier for you to have knowledge and make proper devotional choices, so you proceed gradually. So some devotees are so, from this life fortune or previous life fortune, they can just go like this. And some of us who are less fortunate, we have to go like this. And some of us who are a little less fortunate have to go like this. And some who are less fortunate have to go like this. But it doesn't make a difference. And all those devotees are in the community of devotees. What we don't want to do is go like this, in the opposite direction. So, most important, keep in the association of devotees and chant a steady number of rounds and hear Shastra. Okay? Where are you from?
I am from Gaya, in Bihar.
From where? You're Bihari?
Yeah.
You are in the right place. This is the land of Ras Bihari. Welcome home. We are all Biharis. But no Lalu. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Last question though. Hare Krishna.
I'm just toddler in the spiritual world right
You
now.
say again?
Toddler.
A what?
Toddler.
Toddler?
Toddler.
Toddler. A little baby. Okay, yes.
Okay, I've just started chanting like
How long?
1 year it has been, and 5 rounds I do, But my mind keeps on wandering here and there,
Yes.
Like while chanting, like in office, my boss shouted at me, and various things like my parents told me this, X, Y, Z, So I want my heart and my mind to concentrate on the chanting, but it keeps on wandering. So just wanted to have a word of wisdom from you so that I can just concentrate on Krishna consciousness.
What a wonderful question. But it's also, I was going to ask you the same question. How to do that? But we are going to have some classes on japa after, and I wrote a book on japa, which tells what and speaks in a practical way how to do that. But that's everyone's problem, basically, is manda samanda mateo manda abhagya upadulta. Everyone's mind in Kali Yuga is disturbed. So I don't know if it makes you feel better or not, but we all have that problem, wandering minds. In Sanskrit, the word is vikshipta. It's born of passion. So I think it's relevant. Tomorrow's class will speak about this point about what to do if our devotional service is imperfect. But you should keep trying, please. Okay? And perhaps you have many devotee friends?
Yes, lot of friends.
Yeah, so this is a good question to discuss with them too, how to control the wandering mind when we're chanting. But we'll specifically be speaking about this on Saturday and Sunday. Will you be able to come, or you're too busy?
Yes. No, I would definitely come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.